Is this thing still on?
Sounds like they heard us. We are seeing some change.
We need to continue to disrupt the status quo.
And now the work begins.
You are now about to witness the strength of nursing knowledge.
Welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion on health and healthcare. My name is Sarah Fung.
My name is Amie Archibald-Varley, and we are your hosts. Our Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail national best-selling book is available now. Get your copy of The Wisdom of Nurses today. You can get a book for purchase at any of your local retailers like Indigo or Chapters, or pick up your book online through Amazon or other types of retailers. It's also available in various different formats like audiobook and on Kindle. If you read it and you loved it, please leave us a review.
Please make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel where you can watch our podcast in video format. Like, share, and leave a review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or any other podcast platform, leave us a rating and review. Thank you to all our listeners and sponsors who continue to support us.
Your support makes our podcast possible, and we're grateful for the partnership and for you believing in our work here at the Gritty Nurse Podcast. Stay gritty. Hi, and welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion related to health and healthcare. My name is Amie.
And my name is Sarah.
And we are your hosts. So it's nursing week. I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about nurses during nursing week. And, we decided to do a fully off the cuff episode. I think it's about time that we put the notes away and we just have a realistic talk about, what's transpired over the past 5 years. And it's been a wild ride.
It has been a wild ride. I think we've been doing this for 5+ years now. And every year, I think the same sort of things come up. And in my experience, what happens at Nursing Week can be very triggering for people because it often isn't what you would want or expect in terms of being celebrated or the lack of celebration, and even just the expectations as to what you would like versus what's actually happening. And to be honest, we've been doing this for a while, and I think that with everything that's happened with COVID, I feel like we're still in a really tough place right now in nursing. Yep. And we need to keep talking about that.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I think to myself that yes, Nursing Week is supposed to be a celebration of nurses, but I can't help but feel that some of my colleagues, some of the conversations we're still having, talking about where we are and how yes, life continues on. In short, the pandemic, COVID-19 is still there, but I think we haven't really talked about the damaging effects of COVID-19. And I think one of the things that I've heard and I've been feeling too is, there's this whole idea behind the notion of hurt people hurt other people, or, people who are burnt out and end up still being burnt out, and the way that they care for people isn't the way that it should be. And I feel like there's so much underlying that we're not dealing with, and we're still expected to be happy, come on the job, do the expectations, but we still haven't dealt with all of what's happened. And I think one of the first things I want to say to folks that are during Nursing Week is happy Nursing Week, but again, just the fact that it's your feelings are still valid and are still very real if you're still facing some of the challenges we faced over 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that it's about time that we just put our expectations aside. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have anything for Nursing Week. I'm thinking we need to take this under ourselves to figure out what do we need from Nursing Week? Do you need to figure out what's going to fill your cup and not expect anything from your organization or your manager? Because I think one of the things I see every single year over Nursing Week is all of these fake platitudes that we get from or organizations or managers that just are out of tune with what we really need. So pizza parties, I'm not making this up. Bring your own rock to paint.
Yeah.
Here's the paint. You bring your own rock, by the way. Okay. Or it's candy. We're being treated like children. Here's a lifesaver because you save lives every day. I just don't even find that funny right now. Yeah. It is actually really insulting and makes me angry.
And I think about Nursing Week as I think we as nurses need to reclaim what Nursing Week actually looks like. So again, all of these celebrations are being had, but nurses aren't at the helm of them. Like, we are the receivers of whatever nursing week is supposed to look like. And it's usually done by like carried out by management, senior leaders. And again, just none of this conversation in relation to like what nurses actually want. And if I think about a way that nursing week should look like, it should be quite transformative. And I feel like nursing week should start being more of like an activist type of week. So so kind of like how, Pride is celebrated. Pride is celebrated through, the fact that there was a lot of struggles that had to come through to the place that they were in, or, like Black History Month, or these various things. I am definitely not minimizing those things, but I'm thinking about that nursing should really be a form, and nursing week should be a form of celebrating activism within nursing and how we can continue being activists within our profession, because I don't believe that the solution is within other people in terms of changing the way that nurses are seen or heard. I feel it has to come from nurses. But if we aren't strong enough and we don't come together enough to make that change and to be at the helm and be the people that are like, this is what we want for nursing week, and we see it more as activism, then I think that we're going to continue to see these platitudes, these pizza parties, these seeing, bring your rock to work day, or here's a lifesaver, because again, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Those things are so empty. So why don't we celebrate the activism, or the activism that we want to see in nursing week? And I feel that that's the change that we should be seeing.
Yeah. And I think if you are in leadership, like maybe you're not a senior leader or a VP, if you're in leadership and you're being told by your organization, you only have X number of dollars to celebrate your nurses, and, what can you do with it? I encourage you to push back and say that, we deserve more than, I'm just throwing out a number. We deserve more than $100 for our nurses for everything that they do day in and day out. And this is actually insulting. So rather than buying everyone a keychain, like, let's bring in someone who can bring some inspiration and education to the unit. Let's profile a unit or a nurse that's done something really meaningful. And, how can we kind of move more towards that? And really ask your nurses and have them kind of lead nursing week, right? Like, I think it's fine to do another survey, but we're really tired of surveys and we're really tired of words. We need action.
Yeah. And I like the aspect that you mentioned, Sarah, of, we need action and asking nurses what they want. And I think you mentioned kind of like, what if we took those dollars and did something with it? Like, look at all of the different things that, nurses support, whether it's nurses are supporting, cancer research, or nurses are supporting, these various different avenues. Why don't we take that funding and actually do something with it? Hearing about all of the different crises and wars going on, why don't we take that money and donate it to UNICEF? Why don't we take that money and see if we could do something in relation to, maybe it is wellness, maybe it's a retreat for the nurses, but like, make it meaningful. And I think that, I would love, this is just me, that during Nurses Week, we took a nurses march, where it's like, we are celebrating nurses, but celebrating nurses means having safe staffing. It means having nurse to patient ratios. It means treating wellness and treating our mental health and seeing that mental health is health. It is, celebrating some of the pioneers that we haven't talked about in nursing and seeing nurses come together in that form of a movement. I think that would be so beautiful. But again, we need to be the ones doing it. We can't wait. We can't wait for, executives who think that, a pin is celebrating nursing week, or, here's a 10% discount at Chick-fil-A. Those things aren't what we want. And of course, I think that those discounts should be year round for nurses, but it's like, what is it that nurses want? What is it that nurses need? And how can we turn this into more of a movement where nurses are seen and heard? Because again, I think when I think back to the last 5 years, we were hearing more from nurses. We were hearing more from their stories and how, care is impacted, and that's dwindling. We're not hearing those stories anymore, and the stories are still important. So why is it, why have we gone back to just hearing from physicians, just hearing from other healthcare? Well, let's be honest, hearing just from physicians. Like, we need to include nurses in the conversation. And I think that the only way for us to do that is to continue to push for solidarity and change within our profession and show up for one another.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about what nurses don't want. And I think it's pretty clear we don't want thoughtless gifts that we're just going to throw aside. Like, I can't tell you anything that I've kept from any nursing week ever. Correct me if I'm wrong. No. I don't, like, what stands out to you in terms of nursing week? Because the only thing that really stands out to me is like
stale pizza.
That stands out because, like,
or a cold pizza.
When you're on night shift and you don't even get any pizza left because people don't think nurses work nights.
Where you get the piece of cake that has been already clawed into by all the nurses, and there's that like one sliver, and you're like, should I actually eat it? Is this okay?
Like, how long is it acceptable for cake to be out? Because I don't think 24 hours is acceptable.
Right.
Like, when I think back about nursing week, I think about the things that we've done actually that are meaningful. Like, we have done lots of talks, we've done workshops, we have really just like recommended that other nurses look at other nurses and what they've done. So, like, for example, with the Wisdom of Nurses, we've done posts where we recommend, like, these are other books about nursing that have been written by nurses, and this is what we think might be a meaningful gift or something that you could look into. I think we need to do away with all the toxic positivity. Like, I'm just really done with all that. And I think it just kind of glosses over the struggles that we've had and like, oh, you know, everything's great and you're a healthcare hero and we're going to continue to bang our pots and pans. Like, that's not actually changing anything for nurses.
Yeah, no, you kind of touched on a point that I think is important. I think we need to do away. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, you know, let's say you're celebrating Nurses Week by bringing in a speaker or someone else. I'm not saying that we should do away with other experts, but can we do away with maybe making sure that if you are going to have another healthcare provider speak, that it is a nurse? Like, I think it makes sense that if you're going to celebrate Nursing Week, have another nurse. Like, there are so many nurses that have done so many amazing things. Take the time to hire a nurse to come in at your celebration, to have that conversation. It was lovely for us to be able to go out and interact with nurses, and we love doing that type of work. And again, just highlighting the efforts that nurses are doing. Like, there are so many nurses that are talking about such important political things or, you know, things within healthcare, and they're not being highlighted. Maybe it's about time, and I hate to say this because of course I want to be out there and you want to be out there, but it's also important that, you know, other nurses are highlighted and not to have the same nurses highlighted over and over. And again, yeah, it's great, you know, that nurse has done something really great, but, you know, there's so many other nurses that have expertise and knowledge that we should be highlighting. And I think it's fair that we pull in all those various different aspects. So again, like, make it nursing centric, make it nursing focused, make it that nurses have been at the helm and have created what Nursing Week should actually look like versus this top down approach that is continuously happening that we don't want. So yeah, those are some of my suggestions.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, Amie, not bringing the same person on all the time or not having the same topic all the time. This is really the one time of year, well, not really the one time, but a time of the year you can really celebrate diversity. So does someone have to have a certain number of years experience to speak? No. Do they have to come from a certain clinical background? No. Like, you can really just be creative with who you have speaking and not hear from the same people all the time. I would actually encourage you to have someone speak who maybe never has spoken before but has shown some interest or has an empowering message or a story that they want to share. Like, we're all about storytelling here on the podcast, and I think having impactful storytelling from people who traditionally have not been heard of is always a good idea.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, with even just the idea behind Nursing Week, I think nurses should be celebrated all the time. Yes, we have this dedicated week, just like physicians have their week and, you know, occupational healths have their week. But I think that we have to remember to celebrate nurses every day. The work that nurses do is like there's no amount of thanks that actually can be given to a nurse because of the work that's done. And I think a lot of it is selfless. And I think that, you know, maybe this is my bias, but yeah, nurses should be celebrated every day. We just need to include nurses.
Yeah, here's what I think are some pillars that you think about if you're really at a loss for how to celebrate Nursing Week. So number one, like we've already said, respect. So involve nurses at all levels in decision making. We really want the recognition, right? So celebrating any sort of advocacy, innovation, resilience, not just endurance. Like, just because you have been somewhere for a certain amount of time, I think that we need to look beyond just sort of years. And I've already gotten hate about this, but I don't feel like years of experience alone really is something we should celebrate by itself. Like, I think it has to be like, you've put in the effort, you've demonstrated, doing something special, something extra. I think we also need to really prioritize rest, right? So telling people it's okay to take time off and do nothing if that's what you want to do. Like, we just need to encourage nurses to take the time off that they actually have, because during the pandemic, if you remember, there was like no time off allowed for a long time.
No time off allowed.
Yeah. I know there's another term for it, but that's kind of what it is.
POA. No.
PTO.
PTO. Oh, yeah. And just the other thing that reminded me of is, we talk about taking mental health days. I think it's important that we do take them, because if you don't take a mental health day, it might turn into a mental health week, mental health month, mental health crisis, mental health,
Yeah.
And essentially those days sometimes are super important. That is just like, I need a break.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can come back refreshed.
And we always are going to keep pushing for safe patient ratios, fair wages, like an end to workplace violence. Like, these are things that we've been talking about for a long time. I have a couple ideas of things that could actually be meaningful for Nurses Week. So one would be having a safe space debrief to actually talk about all the trauma that we've gone through. Every time there's a patient death, we don't even take the time ourselves to do anything rather than chart. And then it's like, okay, you got to move on to the next patient now. We're not machines, and we can't just like shut our feelings off. Like, we need time to process things.
Yeah. I mean, now that you said that, like, it would actually probably be very helpful to have like a therapist come in, and you can like a drop in hours.
Oh, like maybe
just
even
like, okay, I need to talk to someone. Drop in therapist, kind of like, how they'd have those like drop in massage sessions.
Yes.
Maybe it's just like, okay, drop in, like, I need to talk to someone, and then you could further that conversation. Like, those are the supports that I think would be needed.
And there are therapists that can do small group therapy too. So let's say there was a group of you that went through a traumatic experience. Like, there could be group therapy too, for you to kind of learn from each other and what each other's going through. Recognizing peers with meaningful and personalized acknowledgments. I want to emphasize the personalized, because I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten. Thank you for all the work you've done, every single nurse in this unit. And it's like, or every single nurse in the hospital. And I do feel like it's great. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, if you send a blanket message to 5,000 nurses, it is not very personal. Yeah. So just highlighting individual accomplishments, I think, is really meaningful. And just if there are any wins, right? Like, in terms of policy, healthcare policy, anything politically, if there was, a new act that was approved that does help nurses, I think just highlighting that, even if it's not from your local area, like if it's from another country, I think just celebrating nursing in general is really important, because nurses are still feeling really down, and we just need some inspiration in this day and age.
I agree with all of those different things. And I think sometimes the other piece is maybe finding a new media or a new outlet for some of your own creativity as a nurse, or finding, maybe what you're doing is not working in relation to burnout. And I think that, we type so much of our identity in our profession. And I think that's something we really need to do away with, because at the end of the day, we are individuals, we are people, and we need to find out what it is that makes us happy. And it can't solely be your profession. So again, I think this is where, for example, for myself, I'm finding a little bit more solace in the arts. And I think that's something that all nurses probably should look into, because, nursing is considered a science and an art. So maybe it's time to learn a little bit more about the art aspect of nursing.
Yeah. And actually something that I've started doing recently was I actually went to a spa, and I did this thing which was like fireside meditation. And I know this is like not typically what I do, right? Because when you and I worked together, I remember our organization put together this mindfulness session, but literally nobody could get to it because we were all too busy. Nobody could get to this mindfulness session. And I think for me, it's more like being mindful and like trying to quiet my mind down in terms of what I need for myself. So knowing what you need, it doesn't have to be you kind of keeping up with what everyone else is doing. If you see someone doing all the things, you don't have to do all the things. I think just being happy with doing what's best for you and not comparing yourself to other people is something that I've been trying to focus a little bit more on. So whatever you need to do to keep yourself healthy mentally and physically is something to prioritize.
Yeah. So maybe with the final aspects of our episode, is there anything that comes to your mind that you'd want to highlight about Nurses Week over the past 5 years, or anything that's kind of stuck with you in terms of maybe a positive aspect of Nursing Week?
Oh, that is a good question. I think that we just need to still continue to work together and bring each other up, because I still see a lot of cases on nurses eating their young, horizontal violence. I think if we're going to move our profession forward, we have to start with each other. And that means not doing the things that maybe we experienced earlier in our career. If you see something, you need to say something. I think this whole bystander effect is very harmful. So, if you see something and you don't say anything, you're equally part of the situation. And I think it's also about learning to advocate for ourselves, continuing the advocacy work that a lot of nurses have been doing, and knowing that it is a group effort and we can't just rely on one person to speak for us as a profession.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think for me, it would be just the fact of finding your voice, right? Like, I think if I think back to 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine that we'd be continuing to have this conversation. And I think it's because that myself and Sarah were able to find our voices. And again, like, we spoke, even though our voices shook sometimes, and it was scary. But I think it's just finding who you are. What is the things that you love? What are the things that you're rooted in? What are the things that bring you solace? What are the things that you're passionate about? And bringing that to the forefront, because you're not just a nurse. You are the sum of a variety of different parts. So showing those other parts, I think, would be helpful and very meaningful, and maybe share something new with another nurse that they might not know about you, and starting and building community that way.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put a really quick little plug. We did get a website refresh recently, so if you go to grittynurse.com, our website has been totally refreshed. And if you're new to listening to this podcast, we did have a #1 best-selling book come out last year. It's called The Wisdom of Nurses. You can get it in hard copy, ebook, and audiobook, where you normally get books.
Definitely a good gift for Nursing Week.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Gritty Nurse podcast with myself and Sarah. I hope you have a wonderful nursing week. Make sure you take the time that you need. And let's think about how we might be able to transform and do nursing week a little bit different. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Gritty Nurse podcast. If you have any suggestions or want to hear a specific topic, email us at grittynurses@gmail.com. That's grittynurses@gmail.com.
We are also speakers and authors available for engagements related to advocacy, nursing, mental health, and health policy. Please connect with us.
We want to take a moment to express our deepest gratitude to our incredible sponsors. Their generous support has been instrumental in making our podcast a reality.
Thanks to their belief in our mission, we're able to bring you engaging content and connect with our amazing community. We're truly grateful for your partnership. Thank you.